Hey everybody, this is David, still in Phuket. This is one of those places where you want to lose your passport and just stay here for a little while. And I wanted to do lesson 5 review and lesson 6 preview. And let's start with lesson 5. Lesson 5 was an interesting lesson in that it talked about assessing the audience. And if you haven't done so, I made a couple of posts in the discussion boards. I don't normally post things in the discussion boards unless I find some things that I think have some additional value. So take a look at the posts that I had both on discussion 5.1 and 5.2. Discussion 5.1 really talked about connecting the audience downstream. So many times as we're making presentations or we're in a meeting and we're talking to people, we're only thinking about those people that are in the room at that point in time and assessing who's in there. Well, as you move up in your management career, many of the things that you do and say and apply will have impact downstream to the people who may report to those people or the customers that they may interact with. So as you begin to think about the audience, don't always just think about the immediate audience that's in front of you, but think about the audience that may be downstream who are hearing it from the people that you're chatting with. So take a look at that. And then in 5.2, that was really the conversation that you had after the video of walking from no to yes. And there were some really interesting comments in there that I drew from that video. One is taking the third side, which is difficult sometimes because you think about arguments and you think about arguments being two-sided. It's either this or it's this. And what the speaker on the video was talking about was take the third side. There is a third side to an argument. So as you're assessing opportunities, as you're assessing problems, as you're looking at the audience, take a look at what a third side of that argument could be. And then the second comment that he talked about was moving to the balcony. You think about that as you go to a concert or you go to the theater or something like that. Sometimes if you're on the floor, you only get a certain perspective of the stage or of the people who are on the stage. But if you move up to the balcony, you have full view of what's going on in that particular situation. And so what I'm asking you to consider on that is as you begin to look at problems, as you begin to assess potential responses to those problems, move to the balcony so that you can get a broader picture of what's going on. And then the third concept was really walk the Abraham path. And if you hadn't really looked at that video, consider that again, because what that is really talking about is uniting and finding common vision. And those are the things that I think are really incredibly important as you assess audiences. Again, the audience that's in front of you and the audience that's downstream. And then 5.1, the case study there, really talked about assumptions. And so you look at those types of things, and I'll be grading those today. And well, actually, some of you got them in early. This is actually Valentine's Day today, as I'm recording this, and it's also my wife's birthday. And 2 days ago was our anniversary. We've been married for 30 years. Sorry for the diversion on that, but 30 years of my wife following me all around the world. She's a very patient lady, and I love her very much. So anyway, that's lesson 5. Lesson 6 begins to talk about subject matter experts, or SMEs. As you begin to look at part 3 of your course project, you're going to be talking about SMEs in that course project. And as you can tell in that story, there were several different SMEs that, quite frankly, if they weren't in the position they were in, not sure Amina's life would have been saved. And so SMEs are incredibly, incredibly important. And then in discussion question 2, I talked to you about organizational honesty. And don't think of this, now hear me on this, don't think of this question in the traditional terms of honesty, like telling the truth to another person or things of that nature. This is really about the organization and the leaders in that organization taking a very careful look at the strengths and weaknesses of that organization and then being honest with each other on that. I've always found when people do SWOT analysis, many times I've worked with them as a consultant, and you have them do strengths, and their strength list is a mile long. And then when you get to the weaknesses part of that, they get lockjaw, and they may have one or two. Uh, it's sort of like interviewing, people. What are your strengths? And they tell you all the strengths they have. What are your weaknesses? Well, I'm just too giving. Those types of things. Um, so what I really want to talk about in that one is the importance of organizational honesty in solving problems, because many times organizations can fool themselves in those areas, and if you begin to fool yourselves in those areas, you're on the downhill slide. So that deals with organizational honesty. And then the case study this week is a funny one, and it's funny because I'm a big a Sherlock Holmes fan, and so I'm having you read a story called Silver Blaze. It's a short story, and it really talks about the importance of having complete and accurate data as you're solving problems and looking at things from multiple different areas and having an opportunity to look at the total picture. Now, when you write this case study, you don't have to do a case study on Silver Blaze. I also present some information in there about deaths during the Iraq War. And so you can apply that. You can look at wherever your research takes you on this one. But just remember that the key part of this question is about the importance of having complete, total, and accurate data as you go forward. So I think that's about it. The next time I chat with you, we will be in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is in the northern part of Thailand. That'll be here in 2 or 3 days. But as always, I am easily accessible if you need me. And in the meantime, keep studying. Here comes my finger.